It might be a bit unorthodox to present the best and worst films of a particular year a good year and a half almost after that year has ended. But at the same time, I think it gives some perspective too. Which of these films really has kind of stood up with the test of time here? So let's talk the best and worst movies of 2022. Hey guys, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews It. Welcome to my best and worst movies of 2022. I know we've just recently wrapped 2023 with the Oscars and stuff in the books, but we're going back a little bit further. I never did get to present my favorite films of 2022. I was still trying to catch up on a bunch throughout last year and I just sort of fell behind, but look, I wanted to get it on the record in the books, and it was kind of nice to look back at movies that I hadn't watched in some cases in 2 full years and see, okay, where really does this stand? A lot of the best movies of the year usually come out towards the end of the year because that's like the Oscar push and stuff. So they're newer. So you think, oh, okay, this is so great. But a year and a half later, it's nice to kind of have that perspective a little bit, to be honest. And one of the best reasons for doing this now is that you can check out the full list of 201 movies. It was supposed to be 200, but I accidentally sort of lost count and forgot one of the movies. So it turns out to be 201 for the year. But anyway, you can check it out on my Letterboxd, and there's the link in the description below there. Letterboxd is an awesome tool for cataloging movies, making lists like this, and just, kind of keeping a diary of what movies you see, what the ratings are, and that kind of thing. So please follow me on Letterboxd if you don't already. It's a really, really cool tool. But in any event, you can see my ranking of the entire list. I've never ranked a whole year's worth of movies. Usually I'll just do the top 25 or top 30 or whatever, and then like the bottom 10 or what have you. But with Letterboxd, you can, rank them all if you want. So I've decided to, even within the letter categories, kind of break them up from the best to the worst. So it is the 201 films that I saw that came out in 2022, all ranked for you. So it's pretty interesting. And we're going to do the top 25 here, and then the bottom 12, simply because there were exactly 12 movies that I failed. So it's all the Fs put together and ranked. So we'll do the bottom 12. But in any event, on this list of the 201 movies, there's about 20 or 25 that I never got to review here on the channel. So, your first exposure to them on my opinions is going to be on this list. There's a handful of them. And I think only one of those, two of them rather, made my top 25. So I'll talk a little bit about those. But there are a couple just outside the top 25. I wanted to shout out Apollo 10 and a half, A Space Age Childhood, which lands at number 28. That was a Netflix movie with rotoscoping for an animation. I thought it could have and maybe should have been nominated for best animated feature of that year, but it's a Richard Linklater film. Jack Black does the voiceover of this guy, sort of recounting his childhood as a young kid during the height of the space age, and a lot of nostalgia stuff there. So wanted to point that out because I never did get to review that, and that's a pretty cool movie. But yeah, you can check out the whole list on Letterboxd and peruse at your leisure. But let's talk about the best year of 2022. And like I said, it was kind of nice to go back through all these and sort of see how I felt about them. Some have moved up, some have moved down. But we kick it off with Pearl, number 25. This was a great horror film, and in fact, it was part of a duo of horror films, with the third one coming out this year, 2024, called Maxine. But the first one was called X, which landed at number 46 on my list. But Pearl, I thought, was the better of the two films. Mia Goth stars as this star-crazed woman. She has these dreams of being a superstar, and perhaps the reason I like this one better than X is all of the Wizard of Oz references. So that was a fun one. 25. Probably, I think it's the best horror movie. Oh no, there's one other horror movie on this list that's slightly higher. All right, number 24, Better Nate Than Ever. This one certainly flew under the radar. It was a Disney Plus exclusive film. But in terms of family entertainment, live action family entertainment, I would say this is probably the best movie of the year. I think there are a couple on here in my top 25 that are hybrids of animation and live action that are also really, really great for families. A lot of fun. But this was a really cute movie and like that a lot. Number 24. Number 23, The Fallout. This is one I discovered when I was starting to watch movies I hadn't seen yet for the year. And this one came out in January of 2022, so an early entry for sure. But it's Jenna Ortega, very popular, of course, right now, and Maddie Ziegler. Very dramatic, but it hits a lot of emotional beats. I think this was maybe in theaters. By the time I saw it, it was on HBO Max. So you may be able to catch it still there, but it's called The Fallout. That's my number 23. Number 22, Till. This is about Emmett Till, and I think there was a snub for Best Actress of the Year with this one, because the woman who plays Emmett Till's mother, Danielle Deadwyler, it's mainly her movie, because Emmett gets killed, in the early scenes, and so it's mostly about, her seeking justice and crusading, and it's just a wonderful performance, very, very emotional film. Number 21, Barbarian. This is one that I did not get to review on the channel. It came out in like August or September of 2022. I didn't end up seeing it till about a year later, and by that point I had kind of stopped with my monthly 2022 wrap-up reviews. So never really got to review this one on the channel, but it is the best horror film of last year. A little better than Pearl. Very original, very scary, and it's one of these movies where probably the less you know about it going in, the better. But it's a mostly confined space type of movie. I guess I can say that, and it's got some twists and turns. Very frightening. Just a really, really enjoyable horror movie from last year. All right, now we get to a couple of animated films at number 20 and number 19 that originally I graded a little bit lower, but upon reflection, and one of them I actually ended up watching a second time, they ended up moving up to the A- category, and therefore earning slots in my top 25. Number 20, Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, and number 19, Puss in Boots, The Last Wish. That's the one I watched a second time. But Marcel the Shell, when I first watched it, I thought the plot maybe was a little bit thin. But the more I think about it and stuff, it's just so cleverly done. Jenny Slate does such a great job portraying Marcel the Shell. So, had to give that one a little bit of a boost in the grade. And Puss in Boots, kind of the same. Not that I thought that the story was thin, but it was fun. It was cute. It was funny, but it didn't necessarily, strike out to me as anything amazing. I gave it I think it was a B plus when I originally graded it. But then, it had all of this buzz around it. The critics were loving it. Some of my friends I talked to were like, no, you should really watch this again. It's better, I think, than you might be remembering. And I watched it again, and the themes of the Puss in Boots movie are so well done. And it's such a step up from the first Puss in Boots movie, which I thought was good, and it was cute and everything. Zach Galifianakis was in that. But this is definitely almost a more mature movie, even though it is still for kids, but it's definitely layered, which is something that maybe I didn't appreciate the first watch through. So I bumped that one up to an A-, and it lands at number 19 for the year. Number 18, Do Revenge. This is one of two, and we'll talk about the other one a little bit later, much higher up, but two movies that really kind of reminded me of the 80s, maybe early 90s kind of teen comedies. Maybe a little John Hughes-ish, maybe a little Clueless era, Heathers, that kind of stuff. And this is with Camila Mendes, who is really kind of coming into her own as a movie star. She had, of course, a good run on the show Riverdale, but she's already released two movies directly to Amazon Prime this year, 2024, and I've seen one of them so far. The other one just came out, I think, a week or two ago, so I got to check that one out. But yeah, she's definitely making a name for herself. This movie is funny, it's sick and twisted, and yeah, it really did remind me kind of like a Heathers, Mean Girls kind of thing. And yeah, we don't get a ton of movies like that anymore. Maybe if we do, they're just not as clever, not as well done. I really like this movie, so that's my number 18. Number 17 is my final fully animated movie. Well, no, I guess you know what, that's not true. We'll talk a little bit about that later. But in terms of big budget theatrical animated films, this was my favorite of 2022. Lightyear lands at number 17. Of course, this is based on the Toy Story movies, and it's really supposed to be the movie that Andy watched in the 90s that made him so obsessed with the character of Buzz Lightyear. I don't really particularly buy that premise because there's a lot of things that I think would not have been in an action film in the 90s, but we will kind of put that aside. This was a very funny movie, and look, Pixar is kind of always at their best lately when doing Toy Story stuff, so this is no exception. Chris Evans did a great job in the role. Obviously, kind of a tough task after Tim Allen, but this, a lot of people were up in arms that it wasn't Tim Allen, but that's kind of the point, like, whatever. But we won't go there. But yeah, I like this movie a lot. And Socks the cat, how can you not love him? So funny stuff there. All right, number 16 is the highest ranked movie that I did not get to review on the channel yet, and that is, spoiler alert, this one is a romantic drama, and it came out towards the end, I guess, of 2022, but it was one that I never got to see. And it stars Jim Parsons and Ben Aldridge, and it is about the real life journalist Michael Ausiello, who I've been following his columns about movie reviews for many, many, many years. He's very, very well known kind of in that industry, and so this is sort of a real life story about him and his lover, who ends up dying, and that's sort of the spoiler alert. We find that out in the beginning of the movie, and then we go through the paces of that emotional stuff and their romance and all of it, and it is so well written, so well crafted, and well acted. Jim Parsons, obviously, best known for Sheldon on Big Bang Theory, but he's really done a lot of very emotional, dramatic performances in the last, 5 or 6 years, probably starting with The Normal Heart back on HBO. That was an HBO film in 2016, 2017, maybe. So ever since then, I feel like he's really sunk his teeth into some of these dramatic performances, and this is just another great one. So I didn't get to review that one, like I said, when it first came out, so you're getting my take on it now. That lands at number 16 for 2022. All right, number 15. Good Luck to You, Leo Grande. This one kind of came out of nowhere, and I think could have been a possible Oscar nomination for Emma. What's her name? Not Emma Stone. Emma Thompson. And she literally bears it all in this movie, but it's a lot of, again, emotional stuff. My themes are always sort of, I love kind of real life stuff. I love emotional stuff when it's done well, when it hits the right notes, and this one certainly did. But it's also funny in a lot of ways. And yeah, really sort of the type of movie where we don't see a lot of, because we don't get a lot of movies focused on women in their 50s and 60s. We do more so these days, but a lot of times they're geared towards the more like silliness, like, I don't know, the Marigold Hotel kind of stuff, or whatever. There was another good one, actually. I'll point this out because it was not super high up, but number 38 of the year for me was Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris. That was fun too, in kind of a different way. But this one just kind of knocked it out of the park. And this was a streaming original film. I think it was Amazon Prime that had this one. So you may have missed it, but wanted to give that a shout. Good Luck to You, Leo Grande, number 15. Okay. Oh, and you know what? I keep standing corrected on my animated movies. Number 14 is an animated film, The Bad Guys. This kind of came out of nowhere, and this is higher up, obviously, than Lightyear. So, takes that crown for big budget theatrical animated film, I guess. This was so much fun. There is a second one coming out, I think in 2025, that has been greenlit. Kind of came out of nowhere. It's got great action. The jokes are fantastic. Sam Rockwell is the lead voice, but there's a lot of really fun voice work here. And this was a really fun movie. Kind of like I said, surprised me. Came out of nowhere. Inspired by things like the Ocean movies and even Pulp Fiction gets a little bit of a nod here. So a lot of fun. Number 14, The Bad Guys. Number 13, Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery. Knives Out, the first one, was an A+ for me. And really, it was one of my favorites of that year. I don't know if it was my number one the year it came out. What was that, 2019, maybe 2018? It's been a few years for sure. But this one, not quite as good, but this is the top of my A- list. So number 13, still a great mystery. A lot of great characters. The writing, very clever, very sharp. Maybe not as good as that first one, but I loved the return of the detective Benoit Blanc from Daniel Craig. That was a lot of fun. And again, this is a streaming original. A lot of streaming originals made my top 25. And sometimes they just throw a lot of stuff out there that does not stick, but when they get one that works, and this one did have a small theatrical window. I think that was the deal they made with Rian Johnson, but I did not get to see it in theaters, so I witnessed it on Netflix like a lot of you probably did, and so that is my number 13, Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery. All right, number 12, now we're into the A's. Numbers, 4 through 4 through 12 are going to be A's, so there were 8 A's for the year. Or 9 maybe. Top Gun Maverick is number 12. And this one, boy, did I not have expectations for this. I don't like the first Top Gun. Not that I don't like it. It's just so corny. And I didn't see it, for many years. I saw it for the first time maybe 8 or 9 years ago. I was going through a few of the Tom Cruise movies I'd missed. So I saw that. I saw Risky Business and A Few Good Men. And, compared to these other movies, Top Gun is just so corny and cheesy. But, boy, did he bring it all back around tenfold with this one? He being, of course, Tom Cruise, who insisted that we wait till the pandemic had died down a little bit and theaters were open again to make sure this was able to be seen on the biggest screen possible. And boy, his gamble paid off. Not only was it nominated for a lot of Oscars, including Best Picture, but it will probably forever be the only movie in film history that was number one at the box office Memorial Day in May, and it was number one at the box office Labor Day in September. Not that it was number one the whole summer, but, it was in theaters all summer, 3.5 months, which is unheard of these days. Usually, things are going right to streaming or on demand. Dune Part 2, I think, is already going to be on demand starting this week. That just came out, 4 or 5 weeks ago. So even a huge movie like that now goes right to on demand after a few weeks. So I respect the tenacity, certainly, by Tom Cruise, but more than that, I respect his craft. He has always been one of my favorite actors, and this movie is just astounding. It blew me away. I know a lot of people saw it multiple times at the theater. Really kept theaters going in the summer of 2022, no doubt. All right, number 11, The Woman King. This one probably the biggest snub at the Oscars that year, with potentially Best Picture, sure, but Viola Davis. Who did she get snubbed for Best Actress? They even talked about it in the monologue, because, man, was that a powerful performance, a great movie, lots of good action. I know that the story isn't exactly accurate. I've heard those criticisms, but, a straight-ahead action movie like this, yes, even if it's based on true events, doesn't necessarily have to be the most accurate thing. It just has to tell a really good story, and this one did that in spades. Love that movie. Number 11, The Woman King. All right, before we get to the top 10, let us talk about the worst 12 of the year. So, like I said, typically you do a bottom 10, but I had exactly 12 Fs. So I figured let's all put them out there. And like I said, you can see all the movies in between ranked on my Letterboxd account. So just pull it up. I'll leave a link to this exact list. Not just my Letterboxd account, but this particular list, so you can see where all of the movies from 2022 ranked. But these were the worst 12 for me. Number 12 for the worst of the year, Honk for Jesus, Save Your Soul. This was an exclusive. Well, actually, this might have gone to theaters as well for like a week, but it premiered the same day anyway on Peacock. And it's Sterling K. Brown, who I love. He was nominated this year for an Oscar for his work in American Fiction, which was well deserved. He has a bunch of Emmy nominations. Perhaps he's won an Emmy as well for his role as Randall on This Is Us. But boy, this movie ain't it. It was not funny. It was one of these like preacher taking advantage of the flock kind of movies. He's like a television evangelist, and it didn't work. The comedy didn't land. The characters were unlikable. It was kind of boring. So yeah, not great. All right, number 11, worst of the year, Falling for Christmas. Lindsay Lohan's big return to films. Most of these, by the way, are on streaming, or debuted on streaming, I should say. And this one was a Netflix exclusive. And she just had another one that I haven't seen yet, Irish Wish, that came out just a few weeks ago for St. Patrick's Day. Maybe I'll check that out. I don't know. But, look, I used to be a huge Lindsay Lohan fan. This movie did not pass muster for me. Just nothing different from your typical Hallmark movie. Lindsay not really very funny. I think she needed a couple movies to kind of ramp up, maybe in the next year or two. Maybe with the Freaky Friday sequel that they're doing. Maybe she'll finally find her footing. But she was out of the acting spotlight for so long that this just didn't work for me at all. All right, number 10, worst of the year, Tiger Rising. I'm not sure if this was an exclusive or not. I think it was, though. I think it was another Netflix movie. Just terrible. It's a family movie. Queen Latifah, Dennis Quaid. It's based on a book. And from what I understand, even people that love the book hated this movie. And people that don't know the book, like me, also hated the movie because it's just not well done. The child actors are terrible. Just nothing too good there. All right, number 9, worst of the year. I think this was a Netflix exclusive as well. We're sensing a theme here. Netflix can put out some good ones, but for the most part, they try to just churn out movies that that get eyeballs on them, but they're garbage. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the remake there. Just the stupidest horror people. Even for horror character standards, they're all pretty dumb. And again, talk about unlikable. I wanted all of them to die. And I have no, association with that original movie. I know everybody loves Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I've never even seen the original. So I'm not like comparing it to that. This is just horrible. It's just a bad movie. All right, another I think, wow, except for the Peacock one, all of these have been Netflix originals so far, and there's more coming. The Bubble. This was a Judd Apatow film talking about making a movie during the pandemic. Oh my God. Talk about, first of all, who wanted to see that in 2022? We all want to kind of forget the pandemic stuff by then. We were all sick to death of it. And this just isn't funny. He's putting together a pretty decent cast here. Keegan-Michael Key is in it. His wife is in it, who I normally love. Who else was in this? There was a lot of people that had roles in this that usually it's like you see them in a movie and you're like, okay, well, it might be at least a little bit funny. Fred Armisen is in, David Duchovny. Well, he's not great at movies, I guess. But yeah, Leslie Mann, which is his wife, Kate McKinnon, Karen Gillan. But yeah, this one just didn't work for me. Not funny at all. All right. Next up, another Netflix original, Scrooge: A Christmas Carol. One of the worst retellings of this story. They made it into a musical, which is kind of riffing on the 70s version with Albert Finney, which was also a musical. I think some of the songs were the same, but I think they wrote some new songs for it as well. The animation was ugly. It just was not a good version. All right, this one, this one actually did go to theaters. The number 6 worst of the year, Mac and Rita. Diane Keaton, she almost always has one F every single year for me. I just don't think she's talented. I'm sure she was in the 70s. I've seen Annie Hall. But just every movie she's done the last 15, 20 years is basically the same character. This sort of awkward, like, oh, I don't know where I am or what I'm doing. And here she switches bodies with, I think it was her granddaughter or something. And it didn't work. Again, just not funny. All right, number 5 worst of the year. Netflix original. Back to that. End of the Road. This is one of their, usually every year there's at least one of these Netflix original action comedies that I give an F to. And this year it happens to be this one. Most of these other ones were either, straight ahead comedies or like Scrooge was animated, whatever. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, obviously horror. But this was Queen Latifah and Ludacris. Talk about, box office poison right there. I mean, Ludacris is fine when he's in the Fast and Furious movies as an ensemble, but carrying a movie, I don't know. Queen Latifah, well, she's already appeared on this list with an F movie, which was Tiger Rising, but she's in this one as well. Action comedy, not very thrilling, definitely not very funny. So end of the road for me. All right, number 4 worst of the year, Netflix original, Marmaduke. I don't know who thought this was a good idea. Pete Davidson voices Marmaduke horribly. Talk about untalented. There's Pete Davidson. He has his niche. I'll give him that. And when he's playing like himself, basically, like in his recent Peacock show Bupkis or King of Staten Island, or just being kind of the dumb guy in a sketch on SNL, like it works for him. But when he branches out from that, it's usually never good. And Marmaduke is a great example of that. Definitely the worst animated film of 2022. All right, number 3 worst of the year, Netflix original, the last one on the list. The other 2 did go to theaters, but The Munsters. This was not only a bad movie, but an insulting movie. I am a huge fan of the Munsters TV series from the 60s, as is the director of this movie, Rob Zombie. So I don't understand why this movie is so horrible. You would think that he would have had more reverence for the material or whatever. But even if he didn't, or I'm sorry, even if you've never seen the original movie or the original TV show, this is terrible. It's not funny. The acting is horrible. His wife, Sherry Moon Zombie, is one of the worst actresses I've ever seen. And I don't watch a lot of the Rob Zombie horror movies. I know she's in most of those too. Maybe she's better in horror. I don't know. But boy, oh boy, this was a case of nepotism that we certainly did not need. I could take a Nepo baby or, whatever, if you want to put your wife in a movie, but God, make her good. Leslie Mann in the Judd Apatow movie. Okay, it's a terrible movie, but not her fault. Leslie Mann is still a good actress, with or without a Judd Apatow feature. But Sherry Moon Zombie, my God, this was the worst performance for me, probably, of the year. Do not see The Munsters. All right, so that's it for the Netflix original. But I can't believe that we had one. I didn't think about it till I was doing this recording. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of my 12 Fs for the year were Netflix original movies. That's a bad track record. All right, number 2, Morbius. I mean, this one had to be up there, right, for the worst of the year. It's not quite the worst, but it's definitely up there. I can't believe they actually made this movie. It's so bad on so many levels. So much has been said already about Morbius. I don't think we need to really add on to it. But my God, I can't believe anybody at Sony saw this and was like, yeah, this is going to be a franchise with Jared Leto as Morbius. No, it's not. It's got panned by everybody. But it is not the worst movie of the year, believe it or not. And this was a struggle. I was debating between these two, but no, the worst movie of the year is Moonfall. This is a Roland Emmerich picture. Most of his movies are pretty bad. But this one, my God, what a stinker. It didn't make any sense, either scientifically or just even within the confines of its own universe. It didn't make sense. The acting is terrible. The effects were terrible. And this was a big budget movie. I think maybe among the 200 million kind of price tag. Terrible on every single level. I can't not recommend Moonfall enough. It was tough between this and Morbius because they're both so just horrendous in every way possible. But I think, I don't know, Morbius definitely wasn't tongue-in-cheek. It wasn't knowingly bad, but Moonfall makes even less sense, which is hard to believe if you've seen Morbius. But all right, so now we get to the top 10. And among this are one, two, three, four, five movies. Half of my top 10 of the year were movies that were nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars. So that's pretty impressive. And one of them even won, and that is my number 10. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. This one got a lot of flack when it won Best Picture of the Year. A lot of people were saying, oh, no, this should have won, or this was better, or whatever. And look, I thought this was very original. It was many, many different genres at once, and almost all of them worked and came together well. Michelle Yeoh, wonderful performance. I don't think she deserved the Oscar for it. I will say that. And I don't really think Jamie Lee Curtis deserved the Oscar either. But in any event, Ke Huy Quan, I think did. He did a great job, as his supporting actor role. But the movie on the whole, I really enjoyed watching it. I think it got a little too full of itself with like the rock metaphors and stuff. I could take or leave that. But this was definitely a fun ride. All right, number 9, not a fun ride, but a well-done movie. All Quiet on the Western Front, a Netflix original. See, sometimes they do good ones too. And this is obviously a remake of the famous 1930s World War I movie. And almost 100 years later, they've remade it. And boy, was this a hard watch, but well done. And I guess it's my highest foreign film of the year too, right? Yeah. And the acting was great. I don't know any of these actors, but they all did a great job. The direction was great. This maybe is not as good as the original, but you could hold it up to it for sure. And I think both are very, very good in their own way, and it deserved the Best Picture nomination. I think it won Best Foreign Film as well. All right, number 8. This kind of came out of nowhere. Cha Cha Real Smooth. This was a streaming exclusive as well on, I think it's Amazon Prime. It might be Hulu. I think it's Prime though. But this is, look, I love a slice of life movie. I love a real story, and these are real characters here. Dakota Johnson, Cooper Rafe, who I haven't really seen since and didn't know him at the time, but he's like a party DJ or whatever for bar mitzvahs and parties and stuff. And him and Dakota Johnson start up a relationship, and there's a lot more to it than that. But this is definitely one of the best movies of the year in terms of like real people doing real stuff that is not based on existing people, let's say. It's just it's funny, it's definitely dramatic, and the romance works. So check that one out. I know it kind of flew under the radar. Cha Cha Real Smooth, my number 8 of the year. Number 7, Honor Society. This was I want to say this was an exclusive streaming movie too, but I forget who it was through. Was it this might be Prime too. I can't remember honestly, but this was a surprise to me. This and Do Revenge were the two movies that are like, okay, this would be like John Hughes approved, I think, both of these movies. And this also has shades certainly of Election and Mean Girls, and some of my favorite high school comedies of all time, really. And it stars one of my favorite up and coming actresses, Angourie Rice, who we've seen in many, many movies at this point. She's really making a great career for herself. And Gaten Matarazzo from Stranger Things as well. But she was actually, speaking of Mean Girls, she's in the new Mean Girls movie as Katie, but we've seen her in, the Spider-Man movies and a bunch of other things. But she is a great actress, and this is a really, really great movie in terms of like high school comedies, and in that vein, like I said, of Mean Girls or Election or something like that. Election, it's really giving shades of Election, which is a great movie too. But yes, both can exist. This can be great without being a complete ripoff of Election, but definitely having those shades. But definitely John Hughes approved, I would think. All right, number 6, The Menu. This, I think maybe could have gotten a nomination or two at the Oscars for screenplay or something. This was very original. It's one of these movies that, again, you probably the less you know going in, the better, but really great performances here. And yeah, I mean, it's not, I wouldn't necessarily call it a horror movie, but certainly has shades of, the thriller aspect, but it's more of the mystery of what the hell's going on with this place. Who is this chef guy? What's the story here? And as it unfolds, I was just riveted, and a great, great closing scene, I thought. All right, the top five. So we do have two in here that are of the animated variety. I kept saying, like, oh, this is my highest animated. No, this is my highest animated. Well, this one is an animation hybrid because there's a lot of live action here, but there's also a handful of animation. This is very much in that vein of Roger Rabbit. It is Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. God, I love this movie. I've seen it multiple times, and it's always hilarious. The writers on this just sharp as a tack. I think was this Lord and Miller who brought us the Lego movie and stuff. I think it was, wasn't it? Maybe I'm wrong on that. Let me see. But Andy Samberg and John Mulaney play Chip and Dale, and that alone is like, comedy gold right there. Oh, okay, no, but it was directed by Akiva Schaffer from The Lonely Island, so it makes sense. It has a lot of that kind of sensibility. Hilarious, great references. Just definitely the most original film, I would say, of the year. All right, so number four, my final A. This is the highest A before we get to the top three, which are all A pluses. I debated this one actually as an A plus after the fact. This is one of those where the more I thought about it, the higher up it went for me. On my original review, it was an A. But still, it might be an A plus if I watch it another time or something. But the movie is called Tar, and it was up for Best Picture, and I do believe Cate Blanchett should have won Best Actress. This is a tour de force performance, and I'm not even a huge Cate Blanchett fan. I like her. I think she's very good, and the more I see her, and the more I see how diverse she can be. But boy, oh boy, I mean, this performance just knocked it out of the park. And it's funny because among most of my friends, I'm the only one that really seemed to like this movie. A lot of people thought it was boring, whatever, but it really worked for me. It grabbed me right from the opening scene, which again could be seen as boring, but in Cate Blanchett's hands, I thought worked wonders, and it just sucked me right into this world. So I loved Tar. That's my number four, but it's not an A plus. The top three all A pluses, and number three is definitively my highest animated film. It is Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. We had two Pinocchio movies last year. We had the remake of the Disney one with Tom Hanks playing Geppetto, and Joseph Gordon-Levitt did Jiminy Cricket. That is way down on my list, in the lower half, probably in the 110s or so. So you can check that out on the letterbox. But this is definitely a darker version of Pinocchio, more like the original story. And Guillermo del Toro just did a fantastic job with this. And you have the voice talents of Ewan McGregor and Christoph Waltz. I was shocked that this didn't get more love. And if I'm remembering this correctly, Netflix original. So, look, as bad as a lot of their movies are, they definitely have some that rank up there for me. All right, number two, this one was nominated for Best Picture of the Year as well. I don't think it won any awards at the Oscars, maybe screenplay, but The Banshees of Inisherin. I just loved this movie. This is one of those where right from the start, I started recommending it to people. And I had seen it not in theaters. I think I saw it after the fact on demand. Or maybe it was on a streamer by then. But it was before the Oscars. But I was like, you got to watch this movie. It's so good. The storytelling here is just fantastic, and it's definitely in that category of like dark comedy. It's not, fall down funny like the Chip and Dale movie or some of these other ones, Honor Society or The Bad Guys, but it's definitely got that very, very dark natured humor that works for a lot of these Irish movies, to be honest. It's a Martin McDonagh film, which he worked with Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson before. They always kind of make great movies, the three of them, so no surprise this was so good. But boy, this is one that stays with you. I've only seen it the once, but it was well over a year ago, and I still remember a lot of the scenes very vividly, and some of the lines and stuff. So definitely deserved all of those accolades. But number one of the year for me for 2022, and it's the second year in a row that this director had my number one movie. In 2021, it was West Side Story, and in 2022, The Fablemans. I said earlier about what about Cha Cha Real Smooth? Really, Tar, I guess, could be in this category too. But fictional, movies about kind of real life stuff, but in a with fictional people. Tar, I guess that's sort of about real life stuff, but it's definitely a little bit subversive and surreal at times. But Fablemans is a very, very, very real story, and it's Steven Spielberg's story, essentially. The names have been changed, and some of the facts have been changed, but it's about a young boy, just wanting to be a filmmaker in the 1960s and or maybe 50s, and seeing how he grows up and everything. The acting here is top notch. Everybody is on their A game. I think this did get a couple of nominations for acting performances from Judd Hirsch and I think Michelle Williams, but this could have had many, many more accolades. If they still had the young actor award at the Oscars, I think the guy that plays the kid definitely would have been up because he is excellent here. Seth Rogen's really good in a supporting role, and this is just heartfelt. It's emotional. It's moving. It's funny. It's real. And look, there is a theme with a lot of my A pluses. They are about coming of age stuff. They are about real people. Chef, Sing Street, Mud. There's a whole host of ones that have been my number one for the year that sort of have similar themes. But look, nobody does it like Spielberg, and The Fablemans is my number one movie of 2022. All right, so that's the list. Thank you for sticking with me on it. And look, 2023, hopefully we will wrap it up, sooner than this, right? But I still am catching up on some 2023 movies, and in the coming weeks we'll have some chunks of movies in videos. There's Netflix animated movies and Apple Plus originals and movies that came out this month and whatever. So I'll get to that, and bear with me on that. But I would just wanted to get on the record my favorites of the year, because this would have been the first year I didn't do it since, I don't know, 2014 or 15 or something, back in my old show, The Film Fanatics. So anyway, you can check out my Letterboxd and check out this exact list on my Letterboxd too. That is what I'll put in the description below, so you can peruse all of them. And there is a 2023 list on my Letterboxd as well, but for now it is chronological. It's not my best and worst. So you can see that list as well, and my 2024 list as well. Same thing, chronological from when I've seen them, not necessarily ranked yet. But we'll get to that eventually for all of them. All right, thank you so much for watching Dan Reviews It. We'll see you next time. Bye.